This video is not intended to replace the care of your doctor, but to add to it. Check with your doctor before using any of the steps in Good News About Sad Views. If you suspect you may have depression, it could be caused by a medical problem. This video is our journalistic opinion from extensive research. We find the procedures in this video work best when depression is triggered by compulsive negative thinking.
You may wonder how this antidepressant work tape was created. One of our producers, let's call her Jennifer, was suffering with her second bout of depression. The first one lasted about a year. This time the depression had robbed her of almost 3 years. One night, while visiting a depression-related support group, she heard one of the group members say, "I just couldn't wait to get here. It was all I could do to hold myself together." Those comments really struck home for Jennifer. She was having the same thoughts. It was somewhat comforting for Jennifer to find someone who felt like she did. Although Jennifer didn't hear any magical words that would make her better that night, she did meet others who shared the pain of depression. The group member Jennifer overheard, let's call him Bob, went on to say he had lost his job and all his friends. He had no desire to associate with anyone else or search for a new job because of his depression. Bob had lost his home and was staying at the Y. His health was failing. The story went on, including thoughts of suicide, and all this was directly caused by depression. Just meeting someone whom Jennifer considered worse off than herself didn't make Jennifer feel any better, but it did make her promise herself she would work on her depression harder than ever now. She didn't want to feel worse than she already was feeling, heaven forbid. Surely no one would want to feel this way. She didn't want to experience Bob's level of depression. This brought up a good question in Jennifer's mind. Just how bad did she want to feel before she got better? Did she want to just maintain the level of depression she was feeling, or did she want a full recovery? She realized she couldn't maintain the level she was at. She had to get better. This train of thought suggested she had some control of her emotions. Of course she did. Professionals and friends were trying to help Jennifer, but it was time she did a lot more to help herself. But how? Jennifer didn't will herself into depression, and once she was clinically depressed, it wasn't a matter of just being strong and willing herself better. She has been trying, at least she had thought so. Many researchers believe that once a person becomes depressed, a chemical imbalance has taken place in the brain. There is, for instance, a notable decrease in the amount of serotonin found in the brain. Researchers are, however, somewhat split as to whether the chemical imbalance caused the depression or the depression caused the chemical imbalance. Jennifer knew she had to attack her depression on multiple fronts: nutrition, proper medication, and by learning a new way to deal with life. Jennifer couldn't imagine spending the rest of her life in depression. She didn't even want to spend another hour being depressed if she could help it. Jennifer came to realize her depression was much worse than any of the things that triggered it. Depression was doing more damage to Jennifer than those things that she had considered to be the cause of her depression. If recovery meant looking at these causes of her depression differently, so be it. Feelings of grief over a departed loved one or a lost lover or a job loss are normal, and everyone needs to grieve. What is not normal is severe depression. As you may already know, it's the depression that prevents people from making new friends or seeking a better job or simply just leading a normal, fulfilling life. Believe it. They are not doing a disservice to their last job or spouse or lost child by recovering and living a normal, happy life. As far as a breakup with a past lover, what could be better revenge than being happy with yourself? Wishing the ex harm will only hurt you by delaying your recovery. For years now, people have been saying, you will only hurt yourself by wishing others harm. Recent research may prove that statement correct. It has been reported that when in love, chemical levels of norepinephrine and dopamine increase in the brain, causing feelings of joy and elation. Doesn't it follow that hate and revenge could create an ebbing of these chemicals, causing sadness and depression? Why take the chance? Many people still function with depression, but it does inhibit their ability to aggressively pursue their goals and interact with others. This interaction is necessary to land good jobs and make new friends. In fact, depression may be making you your own worst enemy. Jennifer had to devise some kind of mental pill or exercise she could give herself. Internal self-medication, so to speak, for now and for the future. Jennifer also had to prepare for some minor setbacks once she beat this bout with depression. She knew she had to develop a lifelong mental antidote that would help prevent any possible setbacks. Jennifer vowed that very night to seriously start working on finding ways to beat clinical depression. Are you ready to make that same vow? Are you ready to start seriously working on beating your depression and giving up the kind of thinking that helped lead you into depression? That is what this tape is all about, a work tape. This tape is a daily workable program to help you speed up your recovery and ward off any future battles with depression. Whether you want to hear it or not, you have to help yourself too, and we'll show you how. You can't expect to leave all of your recovery in someone else's hands. It doesn't work that way. We did say this is a work tape. Just like an exercise tape, you won't be able to play this tape just once. You will feel better and better every time you play this tape and practice the mental and physical exercises. Play this tape at least once a day at first, and then maybe 3 times a week according to how you feel. When you are feeling yourself again, play this tape only as needed for reinforcement. Practice builds consistency. You might not be able to practice all of this tape at first, but in time you will be able to practice all the programs in this tape in their entirety, physically and mentally. How many times have you heard someone say, "Just snap out of it"? That statement obviously came from someone who has never been truly depressed. You will never hear that statement from us. Snapping out of it is not that easy, but it is possible, even in some cases of major depression. In other cases, some people will have a good day from time to time. These good days will increase in frequency until almost every day is a good day. It's going to take some work on your part. You must always remain hopeful you will snap out of depression. If you have a good day, seize the day, realizing that recovery is possible. Jennifer is here today, and millions of others will attest to the wonderful feelings of recovery. Jennifer will share how she put her thoughts into proper perspective, sought professional help and treatment. Jennifer is now enjoying a happy, full, depression-free life. You can too. Although this type of thinking is more common with men, Jennifer thought she was weak if she sought professional help. What would other people think? What if they knew she was taking medication for depression? Getting over this type of thinking was a big step, but a very rewarding one. She was surprised how understanding professionals, her family, and her friends could be. She was also surprised how many others had suffered with depression. All of a sudden, she was not alone. Jennifer didn't really have a drug problem. She knew drugs or alcohol only help to perpetuate depression and mask the symptoms. It is not unusual to find depression as the root cause of one being an addict or an alcoholic. In fact, it is Jennifer's personal belief that anyone recovering from alcohol or drug addiction should be tested for clinical depression. Untreated depression could be a driving force in a return to drugs, alcohol, or even worse, suicide. Jennifer was taking a form of self-medication. You know, the kind we can talk our doctors into to make us feel better. The type of medication that a therapist wouldn't find appropriate for clinical depression. She started relying on only her psychologist's advice as to the proper medical treatment. Psychologists can't prescribe medication, but usually work with a psychiatrist, psychopharmacologist, or doctor who can. The first psychologist Jennifer saw didn't seem to understand Jennifer's problem and didn't believe in any type of medication. Fortunately, Jennifer sought out another psychologist who made her feel very comfortable and started to work on what proper treatment would be for her. The proper medication could help ease the pain of depression and help break the chain of repetitive negative thoughts. Will it solve any problems? No, of course not. In addition to the medication, Jennifer needed to find ways to deal with life's problems. Jennifer didn't want to spend her life on medication if she had a choice. Every medication has the potential for side effects. Jennifer started dealing with her problems by looking at clinical depression in a whole new light. She came to realize that depression was her biggest problem and a good place to start. Looking at depression differently and how it's perpetuated in your life is the next step to feeling better. We need to be aware of our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. Let us accept for a moment Jennifer's theory. There is a definite separation in thinking between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and yet there is a connection between the two. Our subconscious mind is where the day-to-day operations of our body takes place. Appetite, sexual desires, sleeping habits, personality, increased heart rate, our dreams, recognition of pain, how we feel, and how we perceive what the conscious mind thinks, sees, hears, smells, and feels by sense of touch. The subconscious also helps us perform some habitual actions. Have you ever watched a baby take his first steps? It is definitely a concentrated effort, a conscious awareness of what is happening and how. Eventually, walking becomes a natural subconscious action. We only need to stop and consciously think about walking when the path looks treacherous or slippery. Many of our repetitive actions have been taken over by the subconscious once the conscious mind determines how and why we do things. How many times have you checked the door only to find you have already locked it subconsciously? There are many other actions taken subconsciously, like turning off a light switch, flushing a toilet, or putting our keys away. How many times have you looked for your keys, possibly even retracing your steps? We may have even made a conscious effort to keep the keys in the same place so we can find them easily. In situations like this, the conscious mind trains the subconscious. We have all had situations where we just couldn't believe something we'd seen or heard. Our subconscious tells us, there's something wrong with this picture. Our conscious mind either agrees or disagrees and then concentrates for a moment on the situation. The conscious mind may even initiate some action to further investigate and solve the dilemma. In effect, the conscious mind helps the subconscious mind solve the problem. Let's say the subconscious had some major internal battles with negative feelings and perceptions. Feelings that were echoed by the conscious mind over and over again. The conscious mind here is training the subconscious to be negative. When the conscious mind continues to agree with the negative feelings, a vicious cycle is started. Eventually, the subconscious overloads and starts to shut down some of its normal functions, like appetite, normal sleeping habits, the ability to concentrate or retain new information, and finding joy in simple things of life. In this case, the conscious mind is doing nothing to resolve the dilemma of the subconscious and thereby not allowing it to resume normal functions. Could this be the point where the reported chemical change in the brain occurs? Do the actions of the subconscious sound vaguely familiar? Let's take another look at some of the symptoms of depression. Loss of appetite or overeating and weight gain, loss of interest in hobbies and activities that you once enjoyed, including sex, oversleeping or insomnia, persistent sadness, anxious or empty moods, feelings of hopelessness, pessimism, helplessness, guilt, or worthlessness, difficulty concentrating, remembering, and making decisions, decreased energy, fatigue, restlessness, irritability, persistent physical symptoms that do not respond to treatment. If you haven't guessed it by now, these ailments are all controlled by the subconscious. Most of us do not have direct control over our subconscious. If we did, we would create nothing but pleasant dreams and soothing conscious thoughts. Oh, there are reports of some people who can control their heart rate and ignore pain, but that's the minority, not the majority. What you do have control over is your conscious mind. You can start relieving some of the burden on your subconscious mind immediately, much like our earlier example of learning to place our keys in the same pocket to make them easier to find. We were mentally using what we call a positive reframe. Positive reframes are often used to help train our subconscious. We started retraining our subconscious by saying to it, the keys would be easier to find if I always put them in the same place. Chances are at some point we again lost the keys and again told ourselves our positive reframe, the keys would be easier to find if. In fact, we probably used the positive reframe until we subconsciously always returned the keys to the same place. Another example of a positive reframe may be at the dentist office. We may tell ourselves, think of how great my teeth will look after they are cleaned. Someone overweight may tell themselves how good they would feel if they could drop a size. Setting reasonable goals could also be considered a positive reframe as long as you don't fault yourself when you fall short. In order to beat depression, you can and must start replacing negative thoughts with positive reframes. Eventually, the negative thoughts will subside because the conscious mind is helping to solve the dilemma. As in the example of the keys, we will have to use our reframe every time we slip up. It's a matter of balancing out your positive and negative thoughts and consciously healing the subconscious. This is a big step toward recovery. We have found that many people in depression will consciously keep repeating negative thoughts to themselves again and again and again, not unlike a person with obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD. They will, for instance, check to make sure the same door is closed over and over and over, or wash their hands almost constantly. Their actions might seem silly to us, but isn't that what we are doing in our minds? Everyone has negative thoughts from time to time. They just seem to pop up when we least expect them, or leave us just as quickly as they came. What will dwelling on these negative thoughts get you? Probably a major case of depression.